Hello, M2 students. This is Teacher Reed, and welcome to another video about the circulatory system. So for our lesson, we are going to learn about three things. One, define the parts of the circulatory system and what they do. Number two, know the different parts of the heart. And number three, explore the heart using 2D and 3D models. Okay? So before we go to the heart of our lesson, let me ask you first, where do you think your heart is located? Number two, how big do you think is our heart? So let's try to know some of the heart facts, okay? So first one, our heart is a muscle that is located at the center of your chest. So with your heart, it has two parts. You have the base and the apex of the heart. The base of the heart is flat and the apex of the heart is pointed or sharp, by which most of its body of the heart is located here at the center of your thorax or the center of your chest. Okay? And it is pointed more going to the left side of your chest. Another heart fact. So our heart is a bit larger than your clenched fist. So this is your hand. So if you're going to close your hand like this, so this is your fist. So your heart is a little larger than this one. And speaking of heartbeat, so your heart beats around 100,000 times in one day, and it's about 35 million times in a year. So take note, M2, your heart does not stop beating. Okay, so even when you sleep, so it's still beating. Okay, so during an average lifetime, so normally it's like 70 years old, you're lucky enough to reach 80 or even 90, so the human heart will beat for more than 2.5 billion times. Okay, so it's really amazing how your heart works. Next. So about the strength of your heart, so how strong should your heart be when it's pumping blood? So just imagine you have a tennis ball on your hand and try to squeeze it as strong as or as hard as you can, so that your heart needs to pump the blood to the upper body and to your lower body. So upper body, that includes your head, that includes your shoulder, and then for the lower body, that includes your legs, that includes your feet, your hips. Okay, so your heart needs to be strong in order to give blood or distribute blood throughout our whole body. Okay, so let's begin now with our circulatory system. Okay, so circulatory system is basically consists of three parts, namely heart, heart, blood vessels, and your blood. Okay, so what does your circulatory system do in your body? Okay, so please do remember that your circulatory system is one of the important systems of your body because number one, it circulates. It circulates blood throughout the body. Circulates meaning it gives blood. Okay, so it distributes blood throughout the body. Just imagine your circulatory system as like your highway, your expressway, wherein vehicles need to move faster. Okay, so it's also the same with your circulatory system. Okay, actually, it's your blood vessels that is where your blood will move around. Next, it delivers nutrients to the cells. Do remember that we are living things. We are living organism and we need energy to move around. Next, number three, it removes the waste products from the cells. Waste products from the cells are like your carbon dioxide, like your urea. So those waste products are not needed by your body. It should go out from the body. Okay? And thanks to your circulatory system, so those waste products are being brought out. So it can be through your lungs, or it can be through your digestive system, it can be through your urinary system using your kidneys. So let's begin first with the first structure of the circulatory system, and that is your heart. Okay, so let's read first the complete definition of your heart. So your heart is a hollow muscular organ that pumps the blood through the circulatory system by rhythmic contraction and dilation. Okay, so let's read this word first. Hollow. Hollow. Hollow means empty. There's a space, there is a room inside your heart. Okay, so a muscular organ that pumps. So pump is like this. That's pumping the blood through the circulatory system by rhythmic contraction and dilation. Okay, contraction meaning the close or the tightening, and then dilation meaning the opening or relaxing. So contraction, dilation, contraction, dilation. It's like close, open, close, open, close, open. So looking at these words, okay, actually this is the big challenge for those students. In my years of teaching science, one thing that I observe with the students is that they know the answer, but they don't know how to say the words. That's why I let them, can you spell the words for me? So they know how to spell it, but they don't know how to say the words correctly. They're afraid. So that's why let's read the words one at a time. Okay? So I want you to repeat after me. Okay, let's begin with the first word. Atria. 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 Ventricles. 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 Okay, next. Right atrium. Right atrium. Right atrium. Next. Left atrium. Left atrium. Next word. Right ventricle. Right ventricle. Next word. Left ventricle. Left ventricle. Left ventricle. Okay, let's have this long word. Superior. 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 Vena. Vena. Cava. Cava. Superior vena cava. Superior vena cava. Next. Inferior. Inferior. Inferior vena cava. Again. Inferior vena cava. Okay, next word we have valves. 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 Next word we have tricuspid. Tricuspid. Tricuspid valve. Tricuspid valve. Okay, next word we have mitral. 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 Mitral valve. Mitral valve. Okay. Next word. Pulmonary. Pulmonary. Pulmonary valve. Pulmonary valve. Next word. Aortic. Aortic. Aortic valve, aortic valve, aortic valve. Next, we have the same word. We have the same word as this one. How do you read this one? Okay. Pulmonary arteries, 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 pulmonary arteries. Next, pulmonary veins, 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 pulmonary veins. And our last word, aorta, aorta, aorta. Okay? So these are the words that we will be using in exploring the heart. Okay? So it takes time for you to pronounce the words correctly. So please practice them daily. Okay? Let's go now to your heart chambers. Okay, there are 4 heart chambers. If we talk about chambers, okay, it means the rooms of the heart. So these are like spaces here by which your blood will get inside here. Okay? So these chambers have different functions. So the 2 major chambers are number 1, we have your atria. You have your atria. And number 2 is we have your ventricles. Okay. So remember that your heart, so if we are going to divide this one, here, this is the center. So this is like the right side, and this one is your left side. Okay. So atria is the plural word for atrium. So you have your right atrium and also your left atrium. Your word ventricles is the plural word for ventricle. So you have your right ventricle and you also have your left ventricle. Okay, so right atrium, left atrium, ventricle, right ventricle or left ventricle, these are the rooms of your heart. Okay, so let's go to each room. So let's begin first with your atria. Okay, so this is your atria. So if you look at the picture on the right side of the screen, so if you will divide this one into like the upper and the lower here, so your atria is located in the upper chambers of your heart, right? So they're above and your ventricles are below. So in your right atrium, so we have to remember that it collects the oxygenated blood. So deoxygenated blood, it means no oxygen blood. Okay? So there is no oxygen. That's what you mean by the word deoxygenated. And if you talk about oxygenated blood, so this is the blood with oxygen. Okay? So your right atrium, it collects the deoxygenated blood from the upper and the lower body. And your left atrium, this one, so it collects the oxygenated blood from your lungs. But for now, let's focus first on the parts, okay? So again, this is your right atrium, and this one is your left atrium. Next, with your ventricles here, so your ventricles, so as what I've told you, so your ventricles are located in the lower region of your heart. And there are 2, right ventricle, this one, and your left ventricle. So please remember that your ventricles are used to pump blood. They are like the pumping chambers. something like they push the blood. They push the blood. You just imagine this on the word pushing or the pushing chambers. So they will push the blood to move forward, to go forward. So in your right ventricle, so it push the blood to the lungs. Okay? So your left ventricle is push the blood to your upper and your lower body. So I have a question for you, M2. Which do you think has a thicker walls? These are the wall of your ventricle. So which do you think is thicker? Is it the left or the right? Okay, so if your answer is the left ventricle, your guess is right. So left ventricle has a thicker wall than the right ventricle. Why do you think it should be thicker? This one is thicker. So it has a thicker walls. This one has a thinner walls. Why do you think? Okay, please remember, your left ventricle pushes blood to a bigger area compared to your right ventricle. So it needs to work harder than your right ventricle. Okay? Okay, so the valves, so they are located between the atria and the ventricles. So this is your, what is this chamber? Okay, this is your right atrium. This is your right ventricle. What is this? Your left atrium. And this side is your left ventricle. So your valves are located between your atria and then your ventricle. So these are your valves here. Okay? So speaking of your valves, so they prevent the backflow of your blood. So like for example, so if this is like the road here and you have here the ball, okay? So your valve will open in one way. So like for example, so if your valve is here, so your valve is here, so when this ball passes through, so the ball can just enter very easily. Okay? However, when your ball wants to go back, so the ball cannot go back here anymore because your valve will prevent that from happening. And speaking of your valves, so there are 4 valves there. Okay, let me just clear the screen for you. So do you still remember the valves? I think in the previous slide, there were 4 valves that were mentioned there. Okay, you have your tricuspid valve, you have your mitral valve, you have your pulmonary valve, and aortic valve. Okay, so your, so let's label the parts. So this one is your tricuspid valve. This one is your, this area here. This is your mitral valve. This one is your, this one. This is your pulmonary valve. And this one is your, this area. This one is your aortic valve. So again, please practice saying these words because it will be useful and there will be more difficult words as we go on to the different systems of your body. Okay? Vessels. So blood vessels. So that's the part of the circulatory system that transports blood throughout the body. So transports, meaning as what I've told you, is like the highway wherein the blood will move through or will move along. Okay, it's like a highway throughout the body. So in your blood vessels, so they carry your oxygenated blood and your unoxygenated blood. In your heart, so there are important blood vessels here. So we have here your superior vena cava. We have here your inferior vena cava. We also have here your pulmonary veins. We have the right and the left. We also have your pulmonary artery. Actually, there's also right pulmonary artery, but it can't be seen there in the picture. And we also have here your aorta. Okay, so of these blood vessels that we have here, aorta is like the largest blood vessel of your body. Okay, because it has to distribute blood to your upper body and to your lower body. Okay. Okay, we have here special mention pericardium. A pericardium. Again, pericardium. One more time. Pericardium. So your pericardium is like a protective sac that surrounds the heart. So you just imagine this one like a cover that protects your heart from damage. Okay, so this is the summary of your circulatory system, particularly the parts of your heart. So you have your superior vena cava, you have your pulmonary valve, tricuspid valve. You forgot this special part as well. Inferior vena cava. And then we have here your right ventricle, your right atrium, aorta, pulmonary artery, pulmonary vein, left atrium, mitral valve, aortic valve, and left ventricle. So M2. So I am going to give you like a photocopy of this one. So you have to make sure to have this one because it's very important. We are going to use this photocopy in exploring your heart. Also, I will be giving you a photocopy of this one, the task, because as we explore your heart using the 2D and the 3D models, so I want you to identify them like 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, and number 6. Okay, so this will be like your book as you explore the different models of the heart in 2D version and in 3D version. Okay, are you ready, M2? Okay, so what you have in your screen right now is the 3D model of your heart. So I want you to prepare this paper as we explore the different parts, okay? So number one, our first task is to identify or to know which one is the right side and the left side of your heart. So this is what you are looking right now, this part. I want you to look at the hands of your mouse. So this one is the right side of your heart, okay? And this one is your left side of your heart. Number two, we are looking for the apex and the base. So as what I've told you, your base is flat and your apex is pointed or sharp. So this one, this area of your heart, this is your base. And this area of your heart, this one is your apex. Okay, number three, let's find your atria. So your atria, this is your right side, right? So this one is your right atrium. Okay, and this side is your left atrium here, this one, this area. Next, so this is your right ventricle, this area. This is your right ventricle. And this one is also your left ventricle here. Okay. So if we flip this side, now is your right part. So this is your right atrium. This is your left atrium. This is your right ventricle. And this is also your left ventricle. Okay. So let's go back. Okay, let's find your valves. Okay, where are your valves? So your valves, so we have here the four, right? So let's name it. So this one, this is the right side. So this is your tricuspid valve. So look at, let's move it closer. So this is your right, or I mean, this is your tricuspid valve. And this one on the left side of your heart, this is your mitral valve. This one, this is your pulmonary valve. And this side here, this is your aortic valve. This is your aortic valve. So let's go now to your blood vessels. So how many blood vessels were mentioned? There were like 6, right? So we have here, so I want you to look at your copy again if you forgot the names. So we have your this one. This is your superior vena cava. Your superior vena cava, this one. This one at the bottom below, we have your inferior vena cava, meaning bottom, inferior. Next, we have your this large blood vessel here, the one of the biggest. This is your aorta. That's why if this is aorta, so the name, the valve is aortic valve. So this one is connected to this one. Your aortic valve, this one. Your aortic valve is connected to your aorta here. Okay. Okay, next we have your pulmonary artery. So this one is your pulmonary artery. So this will bring the blood to your lungs. Okay. And we have here the two holes here. These are your pulmonary veins. So these are your blood vessels that are connected to your from your lungs. So they collect the oxygenated blood. So